Posted on April 17, 19 p.m. Central Europe Summertime. Lord Captain Crunch. No, not necessarily. But every side inflates the price only to reduce it in the spirit of negotiation. I just sold a musical instrument at bottom line cost, but she was insistent on getting a deal, not realizing that the deal was already given in my first and best price. I was prepared to stop the transaction. But I know that by giving her the first and best upfront, I took away the good feeling she would get to negotiating a deal. It's all relative, but it's part of the hunter-gatherer mentality we employ in our lives since coming down from the tree nests. Posted on April 17, 2:08 p.m. Central Europe Summertime. Yellow Submarine. Retaliation is not a good look if you are insisting you hold the moral high ground under the adults in the room. This approach is more in keeping with a body needing to show some pseudo-nationalistic response in an attempt to keep hold of some pro-EU voters in a few weeks' time. If Brussels feel they have nothing to hide, bluster and saber-rattling should be unnecessary. Winking face. Posted on April 17, 3:14 p.m. Central Europe Summertime. Elena Adal. Trump is a bully, and what you do with bullies is stand up to them. The EU should be far more forceful in its response, and strike back harder. Also, the EU should not wait for Trump to act but proactively put tariffs and barriers up. The EU risks being put on the back foot otherwise. In these tariffs, the EU should also specifically Republican areas. Trump is a Republican. Under Obama this would not have happened. Posted on April 17, 7:24 p.m. Central Europe Summertime. Tony Brown. Elena hit back hard. You do realize the EU has a $130 billion trade surplus with the US and a $90 billion trade surplus with the UK. How do you hit back hard against your best customers without them going elsewhere? Posted on April 17, 9:58 p.m. Central Europe Summertime. Just words. At Tony, your data is a bit skewed, my friend. Count in the services and you'll see the gap is not that big. A bit of a trade war is necessarily, in my view. Local, closest suppliers should be favored to enhance local economy. Posted on April 18, 8:41 a.m. Central Europe Summertime. Joe Dockers at Yellow Submarine. Retaliation is not a good look if you are insisting you hold the moral high ground under the adults in the room. Ever watched what happens to people trying to hold the moral high ground against someone like Dirty Donald? He doesn't know what moral means, thinks that high ground has something to do with construction, will use fake news stories to attack, ridicule, and marginalize anyone trying to hold the high ground against him. And then he typically goes for the throat. But he does know about retaliation and infliction of harm and pain. That's the only way to gain his respect and communicate with him. It's the only thing he respects, strength in conflict. Anything else he sees as weakness to be exploited. This approach is more in keeping with a body needing to show some pseudo-nationalistic response in an attempt to keep hold of some pro-EU voters in a few weeks' time. This approach is the only one that works, or at least doesn't backfire spectacularly when dealing with someone as unprincipled as Dirty Donald. If Brussels feel they have nothing to hide, bluster and saber-rattling should be unnecessary. If you somehow feel that the EU Commission is bluffing, you are sadly mistaken. What you are pleased to call saber-rattling is only spelling out, in terms that will get through to Dirty Donald, what the response will be if he imposes further trade sanctions. Last but not least, the idea that the EU would have something to hide is plain ludicrous. Posted on April 18, 10:09 a.m. Central Europe Summertime. Aloradson at Joe Dockis. What you are pleased to call saber-rattling is only spelling out, in terms that will get through to Dirty Donald, what the response will be if he imposes further trade sanctions. I completely agree with your post, especially the section I have quoted. Saber-rattling was also used when the EU made clear what the response to Trump's tariffs on steel and aluminum were announced. As the EU has demonstrated again and again, it doesn't seek a trade war and will try to avoid it, but if push comes to shove, then the EU is both capable and willing to defend itself. Posted on April 18, 10:31 am Central Europe Summertime. Allorads, not just words. A bit of a trade war is necessarily, in my view. Local, closest suppliers should be favored to enhance local economy. While this is off topic for the article, I think you are picking the wrong tool to solve the right problem. What you need is to grant locally produced goods to have a competitive advantage to goods produced further away geographically. The only sensible way for this is a cap and trade on carbon emissions and similar environmental impacts on transportation. Leveraging cap and trade, you exploit the mechanisms of the marketplace to reduce damaging transportation costs, while tariffs reduces the efficiency of the marketplace and inevitably fail. Posted on April 18, 10:39 am Central Europe Summertime. Let's block ads. Why?